Hi everyone, I'm Candy from Susan's family. Today I'm bringing you a new design, the flower pixel blanket, sunflower style. This piece is made up of the main part and the edging. Start with making the main part, then crochet the edging around it after it's done. Let's start with the main part first, which is a square-shaped fabric piece, using the diagonal method. Start from the bottom right corner with a foundation chain. Work back and forth diagonally by increasing stitches once it reaches a certain length, which means arriving at the symmetrical vertex of the rectangle. Then start decreasing. Throughout the middle, new yarn is added and colors are changed to create the corresponding pattern. Here I refer to them according to the crochet sequence as the increasing section and the decreasing section respectively. The stitches used include chain stitches, double crochet and slip stitches. Please watch my demonstration. Now let's learn how to read a pixel chart diagram. When we crochet, we view the stitch diagram and the grid chart together. First, let's look at the grid chart. I'll demonstrate with this swatch sample. The pattern here is for demonstration only and not for reference. I'm only teaching how to read the diagram. The grid chart has numbers labeled on it, and these numbers indicate which row they are. For example, where it says 1 here, it means it's the first row. These two squares here both have the number 2 on them, which means it's the second row. Then here, 3 squares all have the number 3, indicating it's the third row. And it continues like that. So the pixel grid chart is read diagonally like this to follow the row numbers. It's important to note that sometimes you'll see 01 on grid charts, which also stands for the first row. 02 stands for the second row, and so on after that. Some grid charts don't have numbers on the squares at all, but instead list the row numbers beside the chart. 1 means the first row, 2 means the second row. Then you'll notice that each square has a different color. These differently colored squares form various patterns. The color used for each square is labeled beside the grid chart. For example, the light blue square in this large grid chart corresponds to the light blue square in the color chart nearby. The text next to this light blue square is the yarn color number used for that square. Next, let's talk about stitch charts. One grid chart corresponds to a stitch chart like this one motif. We'll start by finding the position marked 1, which is right here. Then you'll notice a marked crocheting direction on the chart. When crocheting, follow this direction to work. Now let's start learning the crochet method along with the video. To make it easier for you to see clearly, I'll demonstrate with different yarn here. The color is random for specific yarn, color scheme and hook size. Please refer to the product detail page and printed pattern instructions. First, we start with a foundation chain. Pick up the yarn with your right hand. Wrap it around your left pinky from front to back. Then pass it between your index finger and middle finger. Pinch the yarn tail with your left thumb and middle finger. Start by leaving a 5-10 cm tail. Pick up the crochet hook with your right hand. The hook works between these 2 points. Place the hook underneath the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise around the hook. Now there's a loop on the hook. Pinch the crossing point of the loop with your left hand. The hook is on the left side of the yarn. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. This slip knot does not count as a stitch. Tighten the tail. Adjust the chain to the desired size. Don't make it too tight, and don't make it too loose, so the hook can move freely through the loop. Now start crocheting chain stitches. First take a stitch marker. Insert the hook from below. Mark the left strand. Then yarn over and draw through. This is one chain stitch. Continue with 2 more chains downward, including the first stitch you made. You'll crochet a total of 3 stitches. Take the stitch marker, insert the hook from below the hook, mark the left strand. Yarn over and draw through. This is the second stitch. Crochet 1 more stitch. Mark it before crocheting. Now the 3 chain stitches are done. The foundation chain is now completed. Note that the loop on the hook does not count as a stitch. Here's another thing to mention. Because this product uses a special type of yarn, your hands might feel a bit tired while crocheting. When your hands feel tired, you can change your grip to relieve it. Here I'll show you 2 ways to hold the hook. The first is like holding a pencil. The second is like this. Place your hand above the hook and gently hold the hook. Those are the 2 ways to hold the hook. On the left-hand side, the pinky is wrapped around the yarn. So, during crocheting, if it feels stuck, just loosen the yarn. Gently press the yarn with your ring finger and pinky. Now work the fabric piece. First, work the first row. Make 3 chains as the turning chains for the double crochet. Then insert into the chain stitch next to the beginning chain, and make a double crochet. That is the 4th chain from right to left. Note that this loop on the hook is not counted. You can see the V-shaped braid on the right side of the chain. And on the wrong side, there is a raised horizontal bar. Pick up the corresponding chains right side. Half stitch above the braid. Let me show you the position first. Pick up this strand. Insert the hook and crochet, which is also where the stitch marker is placed. Now start crocheting. Yarn over once around the hook. Insert into the corresponding position. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. There are 3 loops on the hook now. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. 2 loops remain. Yarn over again, and draw through. 1 double crochet is completed. Let me demonstrate the double crochet technique once more. Yarn over. Pick up the half stitch above the left side chain, which is the position marked by the second stitch marker. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. Then yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops in sequence. Repeat twice. Once. Twice. This completes the second double crochet. Make another double crochet in the adjacent braid. Here we treat 3 chains and 3 double crochets as one motif. The first row has only one motif. Everyone take a look. This is the effect after completing the first row. Remove the stitch marker. Proceed to crochet the second row downward. Continue from the yarn tail of the previous row. Start by crocheting 3 chain stitches. Place a marker on each chain stitch. Because this piece is worked using the diagonal method, so when working back and forth, you need to turn the fabric over. Rotate it counterclockwise. Then pick up these 3 chain stitches. Crochet a motif, which means start by crocheting 3 chain stitches. At this point, the starting chain is facing you on the wrong side. Pick up the half stitch at the highest position of the corresponding chain, which is the thread right above the raised horizontal bar. Work 3 double crochets one by one corresponding. Or you can also insert into the marker position, and crochet 1 double crochet in each. One motif is completed. Insert into the beginning chain position of the first motif. Into the large space next to it, which is here. The space between the double crochet and the beginning chain. Insert into this space and make a slip stitch. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. Draw through all the loops on the hook at once. The slip stitch is completed. This slip stitch doesn't need to be tightened. Continue crocheting a motif here. Start by crocheting 3 chain stitches. Pick up the same hole, crochet 3 double crochets. Once completed, the second row is done. This row has 2 motifs. Move on to the third row. Start by crocheting 3 chain stitches. Pay attention to the marker. Later in the increasing section, you need to mark the 3 chain stitches before each motif. I won't repeat this later. Then turn over. Pick up the 3 chain stitch positions. Work a motif. Same here, the back side of the chain is facing you. Pick up the top of the chain stitch, half loop, insert the hook and crochet. Or you can pick where the stitch marker is placed. You may notice, each row starts with crocheting 3 chain stitches. Then turn over and crochet the motif. The foundation method for each row going forward will be the same. I won't go into details from now on. After completing, pick the adjacent motif. Into the space between the beginning chain and the double crochet, which is the hole next to the beginning chain. Work a slip stitch. Insert. Yarn over and pull through. Pull through the loops on your hook at once. This completes the slip stitch. Don't tighten. I won't repeat the explanation from now on. After that, pick the same position and work a motif. After completing, pick the space of the adjacent motif on the left side. The spaces of the motifs going forward all refer to the space between the beginning chain and the double crochet. I won't go into details from now on. Insert into the chain space. Work a slip stitch. Then work a motif here. Once this is done, row 3 is completed. 3 motifs are worked in this row. You can see the texture of the motif in row 3. It matches the first row. This is the right side of the piece. The texture of the double crochet looks more neat. When distinguishing the right and wrong sides from now on, you can refer to the texture. At the same time, the starting yarn tail should be at the bottom right corner. Now work row 4. The method is the same as before. Start with a chain and place a marker. Then turn your work and work 1 motif. After completing it, pick up the gap of the adjacent motif and slip stitch. Continue working the second motif. Then pick up the corresponding position of the adjacent motif on the left side and slip stitch. From now on, continue picking up motifs and work the corresponding motif. Use one slip stitch to transition between motifs. Work until the second to last stitch of the last motif. Now you've reached this position. Because the first motif of the 5th round requires a color change, and also to make the fabric look a bit neater. We need to switch colors in advance, when working the last stitch of the 4th round. For the last stitch, start with an incomplete double crochet. Yarn over the hook once. Insert the hook into the corresponding position. Yarn over and draw through the loop, then yarn over again, and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. There are still 2 loops left on the hook. That's how you complete an incomplete double crochet. To make the explanation easier to follow, the original yarn will be called color 1. And the new yarn we're adding is color 2. Now take the new yarn. From this point onward, the colors I choose are completely random. Please refer to the chart for specific color choices. Start by leaving about 5-10 centimeters of yarn tail. Hold the yarn with your left hand. Simply press the tail end behind the fabric. Then yarn over and pull through. This completes the last stitch of row 4. And the color change is also done. Row 4 is now complete. This row has 4 pattern repeats. The yarn tail from row 4 will not be cut off for now. At this point, refer to the chart. Measure the size of your fabric piece. If it differs significantly from the chart, it's recommended to adjust your tension and recrochet to avoid affecting the finished product's dimensions. Work on row 5. Use color 2 and work until the second to last stitch of the first pattern on row 5. Here, slightly hold the yarn tail for the join when making the first chain stitch, to prevent the loop from slipping off. Now you've reached this point. The second pattern on row 5 requires a color change. So for the last stitch of the first pattern, first make an incomplete double crochet. Yarn over the hook once. Insert the hook. Pay attention while crocheting here. Tighten the reserved yarn at the beginning. You can hold it down with your left hand to prevent the yarn from slipping off. Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over again, and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Then pick up color 1 for the color change. Leave color 2 at the back. This completes the last stitch. The first motif is completed, and the color has been changed. Now with color 2, take a look around the chart. If you might need this color again nearby, don't cut the yarn for now. According to the chart, row 6 will use it here. so we'll leave it connected for now. Use the new color, which is color 1, to pick up on the left side of the previous motif and slip stitch. Remember to carry color 2 along. Place it over the hook. Wrap them together, and crochet as one. Temporarily leave the other yarn here. Then continue crocheting the motif with the new color. Complete this row. This finishes row 5. You can notice that with each new row added, the number of motifs increases by 1. Row 5 has a total of 5 motifs completed. Now let's crochet row 6. The method is the same as before, and it's quite simple, so I won't go into too much detail here. Follow the chart until you reach the second to last stitch of the third motif. Now we've reached this position. First, work an incomplete double crochet. Then change colors. Place color 1 on the wrong side of the entire piece. To make the hidden yarn tail look neater, bring the uncut color 2 from the left side. Leave the yarn tail in a step-like manner. Note that this method works best for motifs that are close together. For motifs that are far apart, it's better to join a new yarn and crochet separately. Then, hold this point with your left hand. Wrap the yarn with your right hand and pull through. Keep your left hand fixed on that point without moving. This completes the third motif. And the color change is also done. One thing to note is, if the original yarn is stretched too much, pull it back a little bit. Pick up the motif on the left and slip stitch. Note that you need to catch color 1 here. Then bring color 2's reserved yarn over the hook together. Crochet the edging while wrapping the yarn in. Then crochet the motif with color 2. Leave color 1 here without moving it. As you crochet, bring the reserved color 2 yarn over the hook and hide it in. After completing row 6, check if the yarn tails are neatly hidden. If you find yourself unable to hide the yarn tail, then go back. And leave a 10 cm yarn tail for color 2. Fasten off the yarn. Then use the method of joining new yarn again. Crochet as usual. Still start with an incomplete double crochet. Then place the yarn tail on the wrong side of the entire piece. Take the new yarn and switch colors. Then crochet the rest of the row with the new yarn. Pay attention. Bring along the yarn tail from joining, and the yarn tail from cutting. Then place them here. Crochet the rest of the row with the newly switched yarn. Row 6 is completed. The yarn tails from joining and cutting will be woven in on the wrong side of the piece using a needle. In my case, since the yarn is too thin, I use a separate sewing needle to weave in the ends. For better appearance, try to weave the same color yarn into the same color yarn. Every so often, after pulling it through, push the needle back a bit and hide it. If the yarn tail is too short to hide easily, insert the needle into the corresponding position. Then thread the yarn tail through to weave it in. Try your best to weave in all the ends. Now let's move on to crochet row 7. Use color 2, according to the chart. Crochet all the way to the second to last stitch of the fourth pattern on row 7. Now we've reached this position. The last stitch needs a color change. After completing the incomplete stitch, switch colors. This completes the fourth pattern. And the color change is done. These color change steps can vary a bit. The main goal is to hide the yarn tails well, so both the right and wrong sides look neat, without messy yarn tails. Continue picking up on the left side of the adjacent group with color 1 and slip stitch. Remember to bring along color 2. Continue working the pattern on the left side. Place color 2 here. Because the start of row 8 requires a color change, so the last stitch of row 7 needs a color change. This method is the same as changing colors at the end of row 4. The yarn we're now taking is called color 3. For the last stitch, first make an incomplete double crochet. Then switch colors. This completes row 7. And the color change is done. Now let's work row 8. First, use color 3 to make one motif. Remember to change colors. This is not far from color 1, so just pull it over to change colors. Once the color change is done, temporarily leave color 3 here. Use color 1 to make two motifs. Remember to change colors. Mindful not to pull this thread too tight to avoid the fabric from shrinking. Once the color change is done, pick up the left side adjacent motif and slip stitch. Here's something to note. Looking at the chart, color 1 isn't needed around here for now. So leave a 10 cm yarn tail and cut the yarn. Use color 2 to make one motif when completed. Remember to change colors. As you crochet, place the yarn tail of color 1 over the hook. Weave in the yarn tail as you go. The yarn we take out here is called color 4. Use color 4 to make a motif and change colors. Weave in color 2 as you go. Later on, alternate between color 2 and color 4 to make motifs. And wrap the other yarn tail into the stitches as you crochet. The last motif needs a color change. This completes row 8. Since there are many yarn tails, after finishing each row from now on, smooth out the yarn ball. To avoid tangled yarn tails, continue crocheting row 9 downward. The crochet method starts the same as row 5. Pay attention. The last stitch of the first motif needs a color change. The following is alternating motifs with color 2 and color 4. Since color 4 is pulled directly for the color change, the color change mark is too noticeable. So the yarn has been fastened off in advance here. Then rejoin the yarn to change color. Leave a 10 cm yarn tail for color 1 before cutting the yarn. Because the next part is alternating crocheting with color 2 and color 4, so the other yarn needs to be wrapped together while crocheting. After completing the fourth motif with color 4, the yarn tail stops here. Crochet 2 motifs with color 2. Pay attention to the color change. The color change method here is the same as the one used on row 6. While crocheting, hide the color 2 yarn a bit. After completing 2 motifs, switch to color 2 to crochet the motif. Carry color 3 along, and then stop here. This completes row 9. At this point, you can hide all the yarn tails on the piece. Continue with row 10. Crochet 2 motifs first with color 2. Pay attention, the last stitch of the second motif requires a color change. Crochet one motif with color 3 and change colors. Then continue with color 2 to crochet 2 motifs. Pay attention to the color change. After completing the first motif, leave a 10 cm yarn tail for color 3 and cut the yarn. Because the distance for carrying the yarn is short here, simply pull color 4 over directly for the color change. Gently pull on color 2 a bit. Don't pull the horizontal yarn too tight here, to avoid causing the fabric to pucker. Pick up on the left side of the motif and slip stitch. Then crochet one motif with color 4. Pay attention to the color change. Crochet one motif with color 2. While crocheting, you need to wrap the other yarn around and crochet together. When there are 3 motifs left, stop color 2 right here, crochet this row completely with color 4. Remember to carry color 2 along. This completes row 10. Move on to row 11. Start by crocheting the first 5 motifs with color 3. Pay attention, the last motif needs a color change. After completing the 4th motif, when crocheting the 5th motif, you need to carry color 2 along. Then finish this row with color 2. After completing row 11, for row 12, everyone just follow the previous crochet method and color change method to finish row 12 as well. I've already finished this part in advance. Now let's crochet row 13. Pause with color 1 without cutting the yarn here temporarily. Then follow the chart and color change method, straight through until the 5th to last motif of row 13. I won't place a stitch marker here. Everyone please place your stitch marker accordingly. After completing, crochet the next motif and change color. Here you need to switch to the same color as color 1. So follow the method of attaching new yarn. Rejoin the yarn to continue crocheting. Note that a yarn ball has 2 yarn tails. One from the center and one from the surface. You can use the other yarn tail from the current yarn ball you're using, or use a new tail from the same color yarn ball. The method is similar to changing colors. If you only have one skein of yarn, then you need to wind a small yarn ball in advance as a backup, for convenience when other parts also need the same color yarn. Then crochet this row following the chart. This completes row 13. Row 14. Everyone just follow the previous crochet method and color change method to continue crocheting all the way to the second to last stitch of the second to last motif in row 14. Now crochet the last stitch. This stitch requires a color change. Simply pull the yarn from where you stopped on row 12 through. This completes the color change. Pay attention that this segment should not be too tight or too loose. Then use the new color to finish the last motif. Remember to change colors. While crocheting, wrap the remaining yarn tails into the stitches as you go. This completes row 14. Next, let's talk about row 15. Once this motif is completed, color 2 from row 14 is here, but this position will be used in row 15. So when crocheting the next motif, you need to carry color 2 along. For the rest of the positions, follow the previous color change and crochet method. To finish row 15. When you need to add color later on, join the new yarn using the method for adding new yarn. Also, if you run out of yarn, you can join the yarn using the same method. Whenever you come across adjacent motifs, and the motif at the corresponding position in the next row is not the same color, or if you won't be using that color again later, you can leave a yarn tail and fasten off. Then rejoin the yarn at the corresponding position to crochet. The methods have all been demonstrated earlier, so I won't go into detail later on. Once you've completed the increasing section and remembered to change colors, that concludes the explanation of the increasing section. Next we'll crochet the decreasing section. I'll demonstrate using a solid color swatch piece here. Everyone should pay attention to changing colors during the crocheting process. Motifs need to be decreased at both diagonal ends. Start by making 3 beginning chains. Turn. Slip stitch into the motif underneath. Then crochet 1 motif. After completing, slip stitch into the motif on the left side. Continue crocheting motifs one by one in the following stitches. Keep crocheting until the inner side of the last motif. Do not continue crocheting afterward. Perform a slip stitch. In this way, one motif is reduced at both the beginning and end. That concludes the explanation for this row. Next, move on to crochet the next row, using the same method. Start by making 3 chain stitches as the beginning chains. After turning, slip stitch into the motif below. And crochet 1 motif. Then crochet motifs one by one correspondingly. Crochet to the inner side of the last motif. This row is now completed. Afterward, simply follow the same method as the first 2 rows. Continue crocheting. Keep crocheting until the last row is completed. After finishing, the last row here will only have 1 motif. Once completed, slip stitch into the adjacent motif to finish. Finally, crochet 3 chain stitches. Turn. Slip stitch into the motif below. After completing, it's time to break the yarn. First, crochet 1 chain stitch to secure. Leave a little yarn tail. Break the yarn. Tighten. Weave the yarn tail into the wrong side of the fabric. You can weave in a few more stitches if needed. That concludes the explanation of the decreasing section. That's all for the crocheting method of this piece. After completing the main piece, next, let's learn how to crochet the edging. Crochet the border around the completed main piece counterclockwise. Please watch my demonstration. Take the main piece crocheted earlier. Find the last motif position of the last row, which means the right side is facing you, starting from the first row. I'll demonstrate using this small sample here. The row numbers are for reference only. Pick up the last 3 chain stitches next to the last motif. Pick them all up together. Then take the yarn and join it. Hold the yarn tail and make a slip knot first. Insert the hook into the knotted loop. Draw the yarn through. Pull both strands. Adjust the loop size. Joining is complete. Working 2 chains as beginning chain. Crochet 4 double crochets at the joining position. Keep the remaining yarn tails on top of the hook and wrap them in as you crochet. After completing, crochet 1/2 double crochet in the same position. Yarn over once. Insert into the corresponding position. Yarn over and draw through. There are now 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all loops at once. This completes 1/2 double crochet. Left side pattern. Pick up the entire pattern and the chain above it. Make a slip stitch. Do not tighten. On the next pattern, pick up the chain and crochet 1/2 double crochet. Yarn over once. Insert into the corresponding position. Yarn over and draw through. There are now 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all loops at once. This completes 1/2 double crochet. Work 4 double crochets in the same position. Finish with 1/2 double crochet. We'll treat the last 6 stitches as one fan pattern. Continue with 1 slip stitch on the left side pattern. Work 1 fan pattern on the next motif, which starts with 1/2 double crochet, followed by 4 double crochets one after another. Then 1/2 double crochet. This completes another fan pattern. Then work 1 slip stitch on one motif, and 1 fan pattern on the next motif following the pattern. Keep working until reaching the top of the left corner. Once the last motif is completed, pick the insertion position of the first double crochet on the left side motif. Make 1 slip stitch. Rotate the piece. Pick the left side motif. Insertion position of the middle double crochet. Work 1 fan pattern. pick up the entire left side motif, and work 1 slip stitch on the double crochet. Insertion position of the middle double crochet on the next motif. Work 1 fan pattern. Following this demonstration, complete this side according to the chart. Once the last motif is completed, pick the insertion position of the double crochet on the left side, and work 1 slip stitch. This completes the second side. Rotate the piece. Work on the third side. The crocheting method for the third side is identical to the second side. Simply follow the pattern chart. Once completed, pick up the motif on the left side. Work 1 slip stitch at the top of this double crochet. The third side is now completed. Rotate the piece. Work on the fourth side. The method is the same as the first side's crocheting method. Simply follow the pattern chart. Finally, pick up the top of the double crochet at the left side motif. Work 1 slip stitch. Finally, hook the slip stitch into the gap between the beginning chain and the double crochet. The joining slip stitch does not count as a stitch. Gently tighten. Crochet 1 chain to secure. Leave a 5-10 cm yarn tail and cut the yarn. Hide the yarn tails on the wrong side. That's all for crocheting the edging. Up to this point, the entire project has been fully explained. If you have any unclear parts during the crocheting process, don't hesitate to join our Facebook group to get supports. Susan's Family, Yarn by Yarn, sharing the joy of life. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next episode.